What's good, YouTube? Just a casual nerd here, back again with another video, and today we gotta talk about Black Adam. Last night I got to witness the hierarchy of DC Universe change right before my eyes, so I want to talk about it. As you can see, I am a little bit excited about this film. I think it is was definitely a big step in the right direction for DC. It wasn't perfect. I actually still prefer Man of Steel as a movie per se, for as everything taken together. But I think it definitely is better than a lot of films that DC has put out. So it's definitely up there, more so on the more so towards the top. But it didn't quite make my favorite. Man of Steel, the GOAT in the DCEU. But that's the topic for another day. But I want to talk about Black Adam. The good and the bad. Like I said, it wasn't perfect, but I definitely had a pretty good theater experience when watching this film. But I guess I'll get into the good things first. And firstly, I think it'll be The Rock. I think he did actually a great job as Black Adam, and I was a little bit worried about The Rock playing this character because sometimes he does tend to play the exact same character and is very I don't want to say shallow, but it's y'all know what I'm talking about. It's not much range to it. Now this, it wasn't much range either, but The Rock really, fit and sold this particular role, which I can definitely appreciate. Basically, I didn't feel it was just like The Rock, just with a different name in a different movie. I actually more so felt like he was this character per se. Like I said, it wasn't too much range. It still wasn't too much range, but it worked. I think he definitely sold this character. I think he did pretty well. And for the JSA, I did enjoy them as well. I did enjoy Hawkman, and of course, the other GOAT, the GOAT, Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan. Now, I didn't really, like I said, I'll get into negatives a little bit later. I didn't really feel Cyclone and Atom Smasher. I don't think they did a great job with those characters. But it wasn't too distracting due to Hawkman and Dr. Fate kind of took more of a leading role anyway, or had more screen time. But yeah, I think Aldous Hodge did a really good job actually portraying the Hawkman. Now, don't get me wrong, this man was getting tossed this entire film. I mean, this man was looking for a fight every single scene. It was just getting tossed up. But with that being said, I think he did a pretty solid portrayal. I was glad they didn't really go into literally the history of all the JSA characters. They didn't bog the actual story down with their backgrounds, things like that. It'll leave room for it to do it later. And of course, Pierce Brosnan did a really good job as Dr. Fate. I really loved the design. I think he portrayed the character pretty well. I wish they would have had the helmet on a little bit more for him, but you know how it is in Hollywood. When you pay for an actor, you want to see their face. So that's something that superhero genre is gonna have to deal with. Like I said, a lot of these characters, I wish they would just have the mask on more. Even though, yeah, I do understand there are contractual obligations, like the actors want to actually, show their face. That's also how they get, more roles because they're showing their face. But when it comes to superhero genre, it's just something that I wish, I don't know, it's a little bit more of just showing the actual, hero character the mask characters were actually wearing the mask. You see that problem kind of like in the Spider-Man, No Way Home, like every single second they was taking that mask off. So like, again, it's something that that's something that's a superhero genre thing in general. But DC has been really good with their designs lately. Like all the costumes are pretty stellar. Black Adam's his oh, by the way, there's gonna be spoilers in this, but Black Adam's second costume was, dare I say, chef's kiss. It was I don't know, it was just very very good. I don't know, his first costume was solid too. It was a little bit more rugged, but it's still portray. I mean, his costume is pretty basic. You can't mess it up, or you could, but they didn't. They did a solid job. But the second version, I thought was on point. And I like that they actually show up Black Adam being violent. Obviously we know that he's a villain slash anti-hero at times, but I did like that, the way he was, killing a lot of people. It was actually violent. It wasn't, heroic. They didn't like lessen that. He was terribly, he was literally obliterating people, throwing people. He threw a lot of people. A lot of people were thrown in this film, but people were literally getting decimated to their bones. And when he took that bike and made it do that speed boost into someone's body, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. The action was had a lot of seemed like a lot of inspiration from Snyder. With some of the slow mo scene was pretty good. They really wanted to show how powerful he is. I really like how now that the DC universe is basically opened up, because DC, they don't have like the same problem with Marvel with the rights. They have different rights here, rights there. They have the rights to all their characters that they can use. So I'm glad they're just bringing more in. Now I don't know how much time has progressed since Man of Steel, because you got to remember back in Man of Steel, he was kind of like the first, supposed to be like first open like hero. That's why it was such a big thing. But it seems like they've progressed beyond that point, which I think works good for the DC films. And this film, it did have some jokes. I know they've been wanting to insert a little bit more comedy to get more of that lighthearted feel. So yes, it did have some jokes in here. Now I will say there were, let's say, half did not land. They were just kind of corny, but it actually did have some jokes that actually got a laugh out of me. So it wasn't, I don't say it wasn't nothing that was overbearing. None of the jokes took too much away. Certain scenes, some did, but some of the jokes that were like situational and were kind of that dry humor actually landed, which I can appreciate. I feel like they're still kind of finding that balance. Honestly, a couple less jokes would have probably made it a little better, be in my honest opinion. But again, some of the jokes did land. They were actually funny. So I'll give them that part. And the last positive thing that I want to talk about, which again, this is a spoiler review, the end credit scene, bringing back my boy Henry Cavill as the quintessential Superman that we know and love. He looked great as Superman. Well, he's always looked, great to me in the Superman role, but I see they kind of gave it a little more color and gave it a little, that hair swoosh. I think it looked great, but I'm glad that they're bringing back Superman and Batman to, build this universe around. So it just lets me know that DC are trying to take steps back into the right direction, and we'll see how this, continue to plays out over the next couple films they try to release. But yeah, I definitely like the scene. It wasn't too much, wasn't too little. I think it was just the perfect amount. And now I'm gonna get into the bad, or the things that I did not enjoy about this film. And I'm sorry, but that kid in the movie, or the main kid with the skateboard, I don't remember his name. I just wish he had substantially less screen time. He kind of got on my nerves a little bit during the film. I kind of like this trope where they have a kid who is trying to, I don't know, I don't say make the main character more weaker, or make the superhero or villain like weaker. And I don't even say humanize them, because I do need, sometimes it's okay to humanize them, but it was just too much for me. I think he just had too many scenes and too many plot points revolved around him, and he was just making mistakes that, like when he was trying to get away from the mercenaries, and he literally just left his hiding place on the skateboard. It just kind of got my nerves on, to be honest with you. And going along with that, the his mom as well. I mean, she wasn't as bad. She was the driving force in the beginning. But I don't know. I feel like she had a little bit too much involvement at some points too. Like I think she had like two scenes where she just straight up just lectured about the political landscape of the area. I can't remember that the country they were in, or the city. She basically had like a Falcon moment, like the Falcon did in the one when he was Captain America in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he just sat there and just lectured. And it kind of it was just like a pause in the film. It was something that seemed like already to be understood by the audience. And I know she was telling the JSA this, like why they didn't show up beforehand and things like that, which I understand that part. I think that you could just make that like a short statement and not like a whole speech. I think it would have been went over a little better. But I feel like honestly those characters wasn't really needed past the first arc of the film. I feel like they could just focus on Black Adam's trajectory and then the JSA stuff. I think that would have been better, in my opinion at least. And speaking of JSA again, I'll bring up Cyclone and Atom Smasher. I just don't think their portrayal was good. I just don't think they really added as much as I thought they may have added in their scenes. It just seemed like they could have contributed a little bit more, and they did make Atom Smasher a little goofy, which I guess is understandable. They were both young, and if I remember correctly, it was their first time in the field. Now, why they brought them for the first time in the field to face Black Adam, I'm not really sure about that one. I guess it was just short on staff. Um, yeah, they probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, but I guess it makes sense. That's why they didn't contribute as much. They were just more so learning. That's my assumption, at least. My head canon. Like I said, I did expect a little bit more out of them. But again, they are young, and they do have they were younger rather, and they do have the potential to grow. And I didn't, just dislike the actors or actors in the roles. So I think they do have some potential in the DCEU. Even though they did kind of make Adam Smasher a little goofy at some points. I was like, why is he so goofy? But I mean, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't like I didn't dislike him in general. It was just a interesting choices made, but it does definitely leave some room for improvement. So I definitely would still want to see them in some other projects. And the very last thing that I wanted to talk about was the villain, Ishmael, who ended up becoming Sabak or whatever his name is. I think I said that correctly. It was pretty on the nose. Like when I said on the nose, it was like pretty obvious from like the beginning. So there wasn't really, there was no surprises there. To be honest with you, and him becoming like Sabak or whatnot, I don't know. I wasn't completely sold on it since the Sabak thing was literally not introduced until the very last part. So I don't say he was. I mean, I guess I could say he was a kind of a weak villain. Because I mean, I understood the motivations there. It was just I don't know. It was just pretty obvious. Nothing really too deep there. So I don't know if the film would have been stronger if they would a different route and not put him out and like removed him completely, or rewrote him just a little stronger. I'm not really sure, but it definitely got me thinking whether they should have just made Black Adam the villain slash protagonist, and the JSA is trying to, stop him, and they could still make him, to look like I guess a hero in front of his people for in that region. That was still an option. Um, I think we're just getting used to them. A lot of these superhero movies just throwing in a CGI villain in the third act. And for this one, I'm not gonna say it didn't work because it did work. It technically did work because it was, Ishmael. But the problem was that it was just weaker than what it probably could have been. Especially since they didn't show Sabak whenever until like the very end. So I think that was the only problem there. But with that being said, I actually did enjoy the film. I think it's a very solid entry into the DCEU. It does get me a little bit more excited about what's to come from their projects. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like I said, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't flawless. Man of Steel is still my favorite DC film, DCEU film, not favorite DC film, because that's a whole nother story. But what did you guys think about it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Are you indifferent about it? Did you hate it? I want to hear what you got to say about it in the comments. Yeah, but what do you listen to me for anyway? I'm a casual. Cue the outro.